Politics 1001.
So, up next, we're going to jump into the plague that is going around. Or not plague, but I guess it could be considered a plague from biblical perspectives.
And we are not talking about coronavirus or corona beer. We are talking about a plague of locusts.
Okay, so the Middle East and East Africa are going through a lot right now. Yeah. They are being ravaged. All their crops are being ravaged by the desert locust. This is the same locust that was in the Bible, and it is the locust that is causing all these problems because it is considered by most farmers as the worst type of locust. It eats the crops.
The desert locust.
Yep, it eats them really fast. It is absolutely so destructive, and it's absolutely terrible.
They reproduce pretty fast too.
As do most bugs.
Yeah.
And they're plaguing East Africa. Tons of crops are eaten every day. They leave nothing in their past. And around the Jewish holiday of Passover, they're expected to really make their mark known in the Middle East as well.
But they're not expected to hit Israel hard, from my understanding of it.
Nope. So they're going to avoid the Levant. So countries like Lebanon, Israel, and Jordan are most likely not going to be hit by this.
But Iran, India, I believe, Pakistan, they'll be hit hard.
Yep,
along with all the countries around the Horn of Africa.
Yep, which is really bad, because especially in India, because it's so densely populated and most people there live on these farmers. So, China decided to jump in a little bit. Yeah. And they're suggesting many different ways to handle this. China obviously has their own incentives. They want more presence in these countries. China's always looking for a way to get themselves more known. Yeah. So, they decide, why not send ducks? And so they've
proposed to send 10,000 ducks to the Horn of Africa because ducks eat locusts.
Yep. And so against the millions of locusts, there are 10 ducks.
Yeah.
10,000 ducks.
10,000.
And
quack, quack.
Yep. And so I guess.
Watch out.
Was that? Do you know if that was accepted? Are they sending ducks?
Right now, I think they proposed it, but they're not really sure if it's going to work, because is it really practical to get 10,000 ducks and just land them in a Horn of Africa in these countries that don't really know what's going on? They'll be like, why are there 10,000 ducks quacking around in Africa?
And even more, like, if people are starving and they don't have any crops, they might get a little hungry when they see a duck.
That's true.
So,
oh my God.
I don't know. I mean, when
the sad thing is these countries are countries that are literally starving right now.
Yeah, so countries like Djibouti and Ethiopia and Somalia, these are all very poor countries in Africa, especially Somalia and Djibouti. They rely mostly on agriculture. That's how most people there make their living. Not so much in Saudi Arabia, because again, there's not that much agriculture there. It's mostly oil. In the Gulf states, same as them. But India and Pakistan, most people live in rural communities, and they farm, and that's how they make most of their money. And so it's just very, very bad, because these locusts are just taking all of it. So there are some biblical implications going on with this. If you haven't heard of the locusts, this was the 8th plague when Moses was trying to escape Egypt and free the Jewish people from being slaves under the Egyptian Pharaoh, Pharaoh Ramses, I believe, and they all try to escape. And so God sent 10 plagues, and the 8th one was locusts that ate up all the crops and starved the Egyptian people. So that's something we see going on here. And many religious people are freaking out about this, because especially people in the Middle East, because they tend to be very religious themselves, and in India tend to be very religious, though it's a different script. So but still, we're going off the Bible here. Revelation 6:8. I'm just going to read this to you, Ian. This is exactly what it says in Revelation 6:8. And this is what most people are referring to when they're saying, I'm freaking out about the locusts. And I quote, "I looked, and behold, an ashen horse, and he who sat on it had the name Death, and Hades was following him. Authority was given to them over 1/4 of the earth, to kill with sword, and with famine, and with pestilence, and by the wild beasts of the earth."
So, is that the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse?
Yes, it is.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so...
The Bible.
Yeah, you know the Bible, Ian. So this is what is freaking people out. Pestilence, famine, and sword. If we look about the year 2020, it's been a pretty terrible year for the earth as a whole. There's been disease, and obviously famine, and of course, violence. So we'll go through this quote one by one. So when they say sword, many people refer to the fires in Australia ravaging the country. When they say famine, they tend to think about the locusts, right, going through and eating all the crops, just like they'll have the same effect on the people in East Africa and the Middle East as they did in the Egyptian people during the 10 plagues. And then obviously pestilence, the coronavirus, plague. That's what coronavirus is. So all these events going on right now are all related to this quote in some stance, because even with
seemingly related,
right?
Yeah.
Because we have sword, famine, and pestilence, and even more. It says, if we keep going and reading, it says that this death angel is given around 1/4 of the earth to ravage, right? And honestly, if we think about it, like if millions of people are starved, especially in India, right, it takes up a large portion of our population.
Right.
If all in Australia, thousands of people have died, so it's become really big. And with all this stuff happening, so a lot of religious people are saying this isn't a coincidence. Like, this is going to be the end of the earth for 1/4 of our population. Is that true? I don't know. That's for you to decide.
People have also suggested climate change. National Geographic put out an article saying, or it was Time, saying the locusts were due to climate change. The Australian fires have been linked to global warming, according to scientists. And coronavirus is just a virus. So
that's linked to China.
There's two sides. Could be the Bible. Could be global warming. Could just be a coincidence that really sucks.
Yeah, of course. And of course the latter is the most likely.
Yeah.
But
we'll see though.
But obviously, yeah, it's just, this obviously has some huge biblical implications, and this is reason to freak out for people who are very conservative in their religion. So